To edit a single sound in Wellenreiter, I've set up the first well to NA, in other words, to no particular sample map. I also turned the sound down on that channel. Over here, I've got this set to anything, a mallet in this case. And you notice that there's some stuff going on in here already. So I'm going to double click there to default this. And I've got the sample map editor open. So you can see the same sample, I think it is. Let's see. No, maybe not. So I'm going to run this down to, there we go, number 1. The point I want to make is that here in mallets, it says 81. And if you scroll down here, you can see that there are 80 plus a 0 samples in there. And you can click add and you can drag stuff in, but they don't show up. This number doesn't change and you can't navigate to those samples. So there's 2 user maps for each side. And you can't point well 2 at anything over here. So as far as I know, these are all identical except for the user maps. But if you start adding to the user map on either side, and you want it to be available on both sides, you have to add it again or duplicate the sample map. For now, I've simply set up this well to be defaulted. We're looking at item number 1, and in the main area here, I've got external set. We can turn off alternate. You'll note that now that the looping goes only in one direction as opposed to both directions. You can also, of course, reverse the thing if you want. The standard setup for everything that comes from the factory is the release and alternator turned on, and reverse is not turned on, and loop is turned on. And we can set the pitch here. And in my first video, I said that this was octaves and that this was semitones. Well, this isn't semitones. This is fine tuning. If you look at the little info hint there, it explains that if you right click on this, you can set semitones. Left click is octaves. Okay. And of course, we know what glide is. Amp, pretty obvious. EQ is centered is the default. It gets lower this side and higher this side. And if we go through one shot here, there's nothing much we can do here except establish where the start is. This doesn't do anything. If we go to loop start, it starts at the beginning and we're setting simply where it loops, which can be quite interesting. And if we set to alternate, it goes back and forth, which is the standard thing. If we set to loop to start, then we're covering where the attack happens in the sample. And if we go to wavetable, we basically got a much tinier window there, and we can't make it very big. We can't make it fill the whole sample. We can, of course, change where that happens, and these things can, of course, be automated, modulated, rather. So, from my purposes, I think start is the most useful, but they're all worth playing with. And another thing that's interesting here is to modulate that pitch in all sorts of different ways. I'm using an envelope here, and of course you can control what the envelope shape is. Another very interesting one would be to use one of these sequencer type things. So if we had velocity, even though the sequencer is not sending out pitch information, velocity, you can see it's still running, and velocity information now is like a little step sequencer. So we can in fact randomize this. If we right click on the word random, there's different levels of randomization depending on where the mouse is. It's a feature we'll see many other places in Wellenreiter. So anyway, we've got this random, and if we've got that's velocity, if we turn that up, you see that it's, if we turn sustain it, it's a fascinating little pitch sequencer. You notice this number here under control. There's the option of randomizing, which is right click. We double click, it defaults. But if we look at control and scroll up and down, you can see the numbers changing. And so you can see there's a lot of presets in here. Set that to velocity. But you can also modulate the sample choice. So let's set that to velocity too. Now, you can see what's going on there now. We're stepping through the sample map determined by the velocities sequencer there, but also we can center that in different places with this selection ID here. And of course, if we wanted to do it in a more controlled way, we could pick one of these. Okay, I love that these sequencers, but let's look for a minute at the LFOs. LFO1, for instance. Now, there's no way to set the amount here. There's no knob, for instance, as there are for the other modulators. But what we can do is control, of course, the rate and the rhythm, but we can control the shape. So down here, we've got basically a sine wave or a triangle wave. And as we slide it up, it starts to become more stepped. Not exactly, there's no visual feedback, but if we're all the way over here, it's a square wave, it's on and off. And so we can, again, position that in here. There's no way of telling what the range is, how far apart the parts are, but we can find spots in between if we just back off a little here. And of course, this exact same sort of modulation can be applied to anything. Double click gets rid of all the modulations, zeroes everything out. So what we're hearing is simply the effect of the length here. And this is a function of the length of the sample. So if we were to switch to a much shorter sample, for instance, if we go here to basic wavetables, And switch to wavetable here. This is like micro control with the scanning of these tiny little waves. Notice how the pitch is controlled by the size of the window there. So if we get a different one here, let's go to we can also use the standard sample. That bell is still working there. So as you can see, if it's audio, you can put it in here and you can mess with it in a lot of different ways without even using the sequencer or the effects. But what I've been discovering lately is how amazing the user sample thing is. So I've basically packed up all of these the empty spaces here to check out the kind of samples that you can put in here and the kind of things, ways that they work. I've switched to a flex in which the sequencer is off. We're on external, and I've set the well 2 to user 4, and I've set up the sample editor down here so that we're also looking at user 4. And if you've got auto pre-listen set over here, you can just click on any of these samples in here to hear what they sound like in their original form. These are all ones that I've added. So we'll look at the waveform. Here's a pluck. Look at this here. This is 20 seconds of guitar playing. So if we go, this is 65. If we go here to 60, so that's over. So that's our, let's default. It's basically playing back. Pretty much as, if we lower the pitch, we can find it played on C. I don't know what the notes are here, of course, but playing a C note with the pitch down, and I've got the sustain up high and the release up high. So there's nothing granular about this. Higher pitches play back faster. So that's 20 seconds. I went in and found this thing here. There it is, 3 minutes long. So what use is that? Well, the main use is that you can set length here. And then position this thing. You've got 3 minutes worth of samples to choose from. I'm sure you can imagine interesting ways to do this, use this, beside putting in complete pieces of music. But look, the length there, I mean, we could basically play 3 minutes of music with a single key press. Pretty astounding to me. That it's all happening so easily and in the context of this powerful engine where we can do all kinds of things with our audio. So how do I get this in here? It couldn't be simpler. The key thing is that you have to have edit turned on, and you have to be in edit mode up here. And you have to have the sample editor turned on, of course. And then you have to be set to map. So by turning it on and off, I've defaulted it back to the first one. So I just switched back to Well User 4 because there's still some room in there. And so you set this up to map view, and then you go to your Finder or wherever your stuff is, select a few items. Now what I've got here are from a multi-sample collection, and I'm simply grabbing all the C notes because then I know that they will be in tune. Any C's will be in pitch. The octaves will be wrong or different, or it can be set anyway, but the pitch will be correct. So here's my the 3 things I want to bring in, and I'll switch back to Reactor. And then I simply drag them into the map editor, and notice that holding with my mouse, if I raise or lower the mouse, each sample takes a different width. I want to get it down to the narrowest width possible. In other words, 1 per note. And let go. I've left a little space there so I can easily select them, which is the next part of the step. And here they are over in the list. So I can now do anything I do to any of them will happen to all of them. So I'm going to embed them. And then I'm going to switch to waveform view, and I still got all of them selected. So if I switch loop on, release comes on by default. I can turn on alternate if I want. I'll leave it on. That's the, as I said, the standard default setting for all the factory samples. So there they are. And that's all it took. So we're still in user 4 here. The numbers are 93, 4, and 5. So we should be able to step up, and you can see the name of the sample here, SCHL C4. There it is. It's from a prepared piano set of samples. There it is. As I said, couldn't be simpler. One of the most interesting things to me, I have all of the samples from one of my favorite Reactor factory ensembles called Nanowave. And it's basically, I think, the progenitor of this Wellenreiter. It's an early version of the same technology. In other words, there's 2 sample players, and there's scanners, just the way this is. And it comes with a factory map. So I exported the factory map and taken out all the wave files from it. And so here they are. I dragged them in to this user sample map. So this, basically, if we start at 65 here, we can see 65, 35 step 4, 35 step 4. But here it's 66 because it's counting from 1, apparently. Anyway, these are the samples from nanowave. And if anyone's familiar with nanowave, you'll recognize these. And if we don't want them to alternate back and forth, well, you can't do them, you can't batch do them unless you select them all. So I was set here to step 35, so it wasn't the one that wasn't base ramp. But we could go easily select, batch select all of these and set them not to alternate if we wanted. So that's one simple demonstration. Obviously, you can take any sample map that you've got or can find in any reactor ensemble, and as long as it's set up this way so that the root note matches the key, as opposed to it being all set to the same root. That's for when you want to have each note triggering a different sample. I started here with a group of samples that are designed to be multi-sampled. In other words, they're all set to different pitches and different octaves. And so they're really not appropriate for Wellenreiter, because Wellenreiter won't allow you to select the samples by MIDI note. However, I loaded them all in, and as you can hear, they're all different octaves and pitches. And I've set up Wellenreiter so that I've switched over to the first sample well and turned off the other one in the same way demonstrated, and defaulted out the settings here. So what we're hearing is simply this one sample, number 1, which is a low A. Then, however, I'm going to switch the sample modulation to velocity here. And then if I randomize the velocities, I'm basically now sequencing in a fairly random way through all these various notes. As long as I hold the key down on when it's sustained here. And again, I can change where the center of that modulation is. And at the end of the map here, I've got a few extra samples that aren't from that set. So I can mix note pitches with those other percussive kind of samples. And you can get quite surgical with this. Well, you get the idea, I'm sure. So here's another option worth exploring too. What I've got in well number 2 here is a set of samples that they're basically wavetables designed for use in Falcon or Serum. In other words, a device that reads wavetables in a more conventional way. So here they are in bank number 4, user 4. Let's see, we're set up on random 16 step, and it's number 70. So if we look down here for 69, there it is. And this is what it's set to auto pre-listen. This is what the waveform itself sounds like. Hardly anything. There's a bunch of them in here. Tiny little waves. Including some longer ones here. These are single waves, and these below here, these classics, are actual wave tables. In other words, lots of different single waves stacked up together for playing inside Serum or Falcon, the like. So if we put them in here into Wellenreiter, this is one of the single waves. What I've got, it's quite usable. If we go to back to what it sounded like on its own, that's random 16. That's what the wave itself sounds like, but inside Wellenreiter we can actually use it. Not only that, we can pitch it. Plus we can step around in it. I've got it set to LFO1 and I've slid it over to one of its stepped. If we switch it up to wavetable, we can do the same thing. We just got a much smaller window there. If we take it to one shot, it's pretty much useless, but not entirely. Now we hear it the way it plays itself. So that's one of the single waves. Let's now go up to one of the longer ones, the classics. So say 86 or 7. And it does a pretty wonderful job of scanning through it. Or, of course, we can turn this off and simply find a place in it that we'd like. So that's my discovery so far in Wellenreiter as a really intriguing sample playback device, which is, of course, what it actually is. That's the core functionality of the thing.